The betrayal began quietly, the kind that slips into a room without raising its voice. Dr. Ayan Malik noticed it during a family dinner he almost did not attend. The food was warm, the room familiar, and the smiles too rehearsed. He had spent the whole day at his clinic, dealing with patients who trusted him with their pain, their fears, their lives. He arrived tired but hopeful, thinking this evening would be simple. He was wrong. His brother spoke first, casually, as if discussing the weather. He praised the clinic's success, the growing patient list, the respect Ayan had earned in the community. The words sounded kind, but something about them felt heavy. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "Now that the clinic is stable," his brother said, "it's time to think about family involvement. We should all benefit from what you've built." The table went silent. Ayan felt the air tighten around him. He looked at the faces he had known his whole life, his parents, his brother, his uncle, and suddenly felt like a guest in his own story. No one asked how he felt. No one mentioned the years before the clinic succeeded. They spoke as if they had always been there. But Ayan remembered everything. He remembered standing alone in an empty rented building, paint peeling off the walls, wondering if he had made the worst mistake of his life. He remembered calling his brother late at night, asking for advice, not money, just guidance, and getting no answer. He remembered his parents telling him to choose a safer path, to work under someone else, to stop dreaming too big. When he refused, they stepped back, convinced failure would teach him a lesson. Failure never came, but support never did either. Ayan built the clinic with long hours and quiet determination. He worked double shifts at hospitals, saving every spare coin. He cleaned floors himself when he couldn't afford staff. He treated patients who couldn't pay, trusting that honesty would return as loyalty. He slept on a narrow couch in his office more nights than he could count. Each success came slowly, painfully, earned through sacrifice no one saw. Now, years later, his family sat comfortably, speaking of ownership and shared profit. They talked about expansion, influence, and respect, as if these things had appeared overnight. Ayan listened, his hands resting still on his knees, his heart pounding behind a calm face. His mother smiled gently and said, "You've done well, son. We always knew you would." The words stung more than anger. He wanted to ask when that belief had existed, but he stayed silent. His uncle leaned forward, already suggesting changes to the clinic's management. His cousin nodded along, imagining a role for himself. They spoke freely, confidently, without asking permission. To them, success had erased the past. To Ayan, the past stood tall and unforgotten. He felt something shift inside him, not rage, but clarity. For years, he had carried the weight of proving himself. Now he understood something painful and simple. They had not returned because they believed in him. They had returned because the risk was gone. The dinner continued, but Ayan barely tasted the food. Each laugh felt distant. Each suggestion felt like a hand reaching into something that was never offered. He realized that the betrayal was not just about money or control. It was about ownership of his story. They wanted credit for a journey they never walked. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm. He said he needed time to think. No one argued. They were confident. They believed he would agree, because family always did. That confidence followed him home. Alone in his apartment, Ayan sat in the dark, replaying every word. The clinic files lay stacked neatly on his desk, symbols of years, of effort. He thought about how easily his family had dismissed his struggle, how quickly they had claimed his success as theirs. For the first time in his life, he felt a sharp desire to push back. Not with shouting, not with cruelty, but with truth. He imagined, laying out every record, every payment, every moment of loneliness. He imagined their faces changing when they realized they had no claim, no right. The thought gave him a brief, dangerous sense of satisfaction. But along with it came doubt. Ian was a doctor because he believed in healing, not punishment. Yet betrayal left wounds too, and wounds demanded attention. He wondered if refusing then would make him cold, or if giving in would erase him completely. As the night deepened, he understood one thing clearly. The clinic was no longer just a workplace. It was a reflection of who he was, his values, his endurance, his refusal to quit. Letting others take it without respect felt like losing himself. The betrayal had drawn a line. On one side stood his past years of silence and struggle. On the other stood a choice he could no longer avoid. And as Ian turned off the lights and prepared for another long day, he knew this was only the beginning. The real conflict had not yet started, but the desire for justice, for control over his own story had already taken root. The days after the dinner felt heavier than the years before it. Ian returned to his routine, but nothing moved the same inside him. The clinic doors still opened early. Patients still filled the chairs. Staff still greeted him with respect. Yet every familiar sound now carried a question he could not silence. Who truly owned what he had built? His family did not wait for an answer. They began showing up at the clinic, unannounced but confident. His brother walked through the hallway, like he belonged there, greeting nurses by name, asking about profits instead of patients. His cousin suggested new services, speaking as if decisions were already shared. Ian watched quietly, his jaw tight, his mind racing. Each visit felt like another step taken without permission. At night, Ian replayed old moments he had buried deep. He remembered the landlord's warning letter taped to the clinic door years ago. He remembered counting coins to pay for electricity. He remembered walking home under dim streetlights, wondering if pride was worth the pain. Those memories had once fueled him. Now they sharpened into something darker. Revenge did not arrive suddenly. It grew slowly, fed by disrespect. Ian began imagining controlled moves, not emotional ones. He reviewed legal files late at night, studying ownership papers, contracts, timelines. Everything was in his name. Every signature was his alone. The truth was clear, solid, unbreakable. Knowing this gave him power, and power changed the way he breathed. He pictured calling a formal meeting. He pictured calm words delivered with sharp precision. He pictured his brother's confident tone fading when faced with facts. The idea did not feel cruel. It felt fair. Yet doubt followed closely behind. During patient consultations, Ian caught himself drifting. A woman spoke about her fear of surgery, and he struggled to stay present. A young man thanked him for saving his father's life, and the gratitude hit harder than usual. These moments reminded him who he was beyond the conflict. But the pressure continued to rise. His parents called more often, asking about progress, speaking as if inclusion was already decided. They reminded him of family honor, of shared roots, of obligation. None of them mentioned support. None of them apologized. To them, time had erased responsibility. Inside his brother's mind, the story looked different. He believed success should lift everyone. In his eyes, Ian had been stubborn, choosing struggle instead of cooperation. The clinic's growth felt like proof that the family name had value, even if they had not invested money. He told himself that stepping in now was not taking, but correcting a mistake. This belief made him bold. One afternoon, Ian found his brother discussing staff schedules without permission. That moment snapped something tight inside him. He did not raise his voice. He did not argue. He simply asked his brother to leave his office. The silence that followed was thick. That night, Ian did not sleep. He walked through the clinic alone, touching the walls, the desks, the door frames. Every corner held a memory. Every success carried a cost. He realized revenge was no longer just a thought. It was becoming a plan, but another struggle ran alongside it. Ian feared what revenge might change inside him. He feared becoming rigid, bitter, closed off. He had spent years building trust with patients by listening. Could he now close his ears to his own family? The choice felt unfair, but unavoidable. He started writing things down. Not insults, not accusations, just facts. Dates, numbers, sacrifices. Each line strengthened his resolve while weighing on his chest. The truth was clean, but its impact would not be as the pressure mounted. So did the tension between duty and self-respect. Ian understood that doing nothing would invite more control. Acting would invite conflict. Either way, peace was gone. One evening, after a long shift, he sat alone in his office, staring at a framed certificate on the wall. It reminded him of the promise he made to himself years ago, to build something honest, something that could not be taken away easily. He realized that revenge did not always mean destruction. Sometimes it meant refusing to be erased. By the end of that week, Ian made a decision. He would confront them, not with anger, but with clarity. He would defend his work, his boundaries, his identity. Whether it healed or broke the family, he no longer knew. What he did know was this: silence had cost him enough. The conflict had moved beyond thoughts and memories. It was now waiting for a moment. And when that moment came, Ian would have to choose what kind of man he wanted to remain. The day of the meeting arrived without warning anyone twice. Ian sent a single message to his family, short and clear, asking them to come to the clinic after closing hours. No explanations, no emotion, just a time and place. When he pressed send, his hands were steady, but his chest felt tight, like something heavy was finally about to move. The clinic was quiet that evening. Patients were gone. Lights were dimmed. The waiting room chairs stood empty, like silent witnesses. Ian arranged the documents neatly on the table in the conference room. Ownership papers, financial records, loan statements, years of proof stacked into thin folders. He did not look at them again. He already knew every detail by heart. His family arrived together. They walked in with familiar confidence, talking softly, smiling as if this were a celebration, not a confrontation. His brother took the main chair without asking. His parents sat close, calm but watchful. Ian stayed standing. That alone shifted the mood. For a moment, no one spoke. Ian felt every heartbeat. This was the edge he had been walking toward for weeks. He thought of the nights on the clinic couch, the unpaid bills, the doubt. He thought of how easy it would be to end this with one sharp speech, to let truth cut deep and leave scars. He began slowly. He spoke about the beginning, about choosing a path no one supported, about working alone when advice turned into silence. His voice stayed even, but each word carried weight. He did not accuse. He did not exaggerate. He simply described what happened. His family listened. Shifting in their seats, he slid the folders forward. "These are the records," he said. "Every loan, every payment, every risk." His brother reached for a folder, flipping through pages. The confidence on his face weakened, replaced by focus, then discomfort. His parents exchanged glances. The room felt smaller, tighter, like The truth was pressing in from all sides. Ian could feel it. This was the moment. He could continue. He could say more. He could point out the calls unanswered, the doubts spoken aloud, the years of absence. He could demand apologies. He could deny them sharply and walk away satisfied. The power was there. But as he stood there, something unexpected happened. The anger that had fueled him for weeks began to fade. In its place came a strange clarity. He saw not enemies, but flawed people who had chosen comfort over faith. He saw his brother not as a villain, but as someone who believed success erased the past. That realization did not excuse them, but it changed the weight of his next words. Ian closed the folders. "I won't share ownership," he said calmly. "This clinic is mine." The words landed hard. His brother started to speak, but Ian raised a hand, not in anger, but in control. "I built this alone," he continued. "Not because I wanted distance, but because I had no support. I won't punish you for that, but I won't pretend it didn't happen." The room stayed silent. His mother's eyes filled slightly, but she said nothing. His father looked down at the table. His brother leaned back, struggling between pride and understanding. Ian felt the tension loosen inside him. He realized he did not need revenge to prove his strength. He needed boundaries. "If you want to be part of my life," he said, "it must be with respect. Not entitlement. Not pressure. This is not about money. It's about acknowledging what was real. The choice had been made. Not distraction. Not surrender. Something harder. Something cleaner." For a moment, it seemed like the conversation might fall apart. His brother looked ready to argue. Years of habit pushed him forward. Then he stopped. The facts were clear. The authority in Ian's voice was undeniable. They left shortly after, without shouting, without warmth, just quiet distance. When the door closed behind them, Ian remained standing alone in the conference room. The silence felt different now. Lighter. Honest. He looked around at the clinic one more time. The decision had cost him something, but it had also freed him. He had faced the edge of revenge and stepped back, not because he was weak, but because he was done letting old wounds decide his future. The climax was over. What remained was the weight of what came next. The weeks after the meeting passed quietly, but the silence carried weight. Ian returned to his routine, yet everything felt slightly different, as if the air around him had cleared. The clinic opened each morning like always, but now he walked through the doors without the tight pressure in his chest. The decision had been made, and it no longer chased him. His family's response came slowly. Some relatives stopped calling. Invitations grew rare. Conversations became short and careful. Ian noticed the distance, but it did not shock him. He had expected it. What surprised him was how little it hurt. The pain he feared had already been spent during the years of struggle. What remained was calm. His brother stayed away at first. Pride kept him silent. Then one evening, weeks later, a message arrived. It was brief, lacking warmth, but honest. There was no apology, only acknowledgement. He wrote that he had underestimated the cost of building something alone. That was enough. Ian did not reply immediately. He read the message several times, letting it settle. He understood that healing did not arrive in dramatic moments. It came quietly, when expectations were lowered and truth was accepted without excuses. At the clinic, work continued. Patients filled the rooms with stories of recovery and hope. Ian found himself listening more closely again, fully present. The conflict that once distracted him had faded. His staff noticed the change. The atmosphere grew lighter. Decisions became easier. Leadership felt natural again. There were still moments of doubt. Late at night, Ian sometimes wondered what revenge might have felt like. Would it have brought satisfaction? Would watching his family shrink under truth have filled the empty spaces? The thought surfaced, then passed. He understood now that revenge offered a short thrill and a long shadow. He had chosen something harder. Boundaries demanded patience. They required strength without applause. They forced him to accept that not everyone would understand his choice, and some never would. One afternoon, his mother visited the clinic alone. She walked slowly, unsure. They sat in his office, surrounded by quiet. She did not argue. She did not ask for anything. She only said she wished she had believed sooner. The words were simple, imperfect, but real. Ian listened. He realized that forgiveness did not mean rewriting history. It meant allowing space for change without surrendering truth. He did not promise closeness. He did not reopen doors. He simply allowed the moment to exist. As time passed, the clinic grew stronger. Not because of expansion, but because of clarity. Ian invested in his staff, in better equipment, in longer patient care hours. Each choice reflected his values, not pressure. He understood now that success was not proven by sharing power, but by protecting purpose. One evening, after locking the clinic doors, Ian stood outside, watching the city lights glow. He remembered the version of himself who once questioned everything. That man had survived on hope and fear. This one stood on experience. The betrayal had shaped him, but it no longer defined him. Revenge had waited at the door, offering relief. He had refused it. In doing so, he learned that strength was not about winning against others, but staying true to himself. As he walked away, Ian felt something settle inside him, a quiet certainty that what he built was safe, not because it was protected by anger, but because it was grounded in integrity. The story did not end with applause or reconciliation. It ended with peace, and that, he realized, was the rarest victory of all.